Naruto, God-level lottery powers unleashed. Episode 41. Can't see Tuanzong. Xingchen is too lazy to go to him. This person hides his head and shows his tail. I don't know if this will be planning something shady again. Yuna, you send this information back to Konoha and give it to Hokage. Xingchen handed over the intelligence information to Yuna. They have a lot of information. It is a detailed map that took dozens of days to draw, accurate to every terrain and mountain call in the Land of Rain, which will have a huge effect on future wars. Well, I understand. Yuna nodded and prepared to summon the psychic beast. Hey, from the 7th detachment, Master Tuanzang is not there, you dare to make a claim? At this time, several ninjas walked over in a bad tone. Although they wore masks and couldn't see each other's faces, Xingchen still recognized them. These people were from the 3rd detachment, and the captain was called Yamachi Ryuki. Danzo is not there, I sent the intelligence back to Konoha, what's the problem? Xingchen asked rhetorically. Of course not, we are traveling, and the Tuanzang master is our only leader. Before doing anything, you need to get instructions from Master Danzo. Making arbitrary claims will only confuse the morale of the military. This is not disrespectful to Naruto-sama, but uniting to complete the mission is the biggest reward for Hokage, isn't it? Yamachi Ryuki's sharp gaze shone through the mask, looking directly at the stars, flashing with a strange light. Maybe others didn't know, but he knew that the leader of the 7th team in front of him was just a 12-year-old boy who had recently graduated from a ninja school. Not only that, but this boy also seems to be very valued by Hokage, and intends to cultivate vigorously. So Yamachi Ryuki is very unfair in his heart, a teenager, even if he is a demon, how can he let him ride unscrupulously on the heads of these veterans who have been working hard for Konoha for more than 10 years? Is it fair? Tuanzong disappeared for so long without a word, who knows when he will return? If you wait and delay the fighter, will you be responsible? Xingchen could also see that Yamachi Longhui was not targeting him because of this matter, but deliberately making it difficult for him. You have to figure out where you are, you're just a squad leader, not a decision maker. In the overall situation, with the masters of the group and the Hokage, you and I only need to do our part. What I'm doing now is also my part. Xingchen was too lazy to take care of Yamachi Longhui, turned around and said, Yuna, let's go. Want to go? Yamachi Longhui's gaze froze, and he instantly shot out and grabbed Xingchen's shoulder. Ignorant boy, don't think that with the relationship of Miss Tsunade, you can do whatever you want. The dark part is highly disciplined, and it is not a place like you who can cover the sky with one hand by nepotism. Oh, you know a lot of information. Xingchen had to doubt. I am afraid that it would not be simple to investigate his details so clearly. Perhaps, it is not necessarily Tuanzang's henchman. Although Tuanzang is the leader of the route, does he have no power at all in the rest of the branches of the dark department? A person as ambitious as him must have dark cards everywhere. You answered correctly, I know a lot about you. Are you sure you all know? Xingchen's words turned around, and suddenly he turned around, and pinched Yamachi Longhui's hand that fell on his shoulder with one hand. Click! Only a crisp sound was heard, and Yamachi Longhui's hand bones seemed to be directly crushed. Yamachi Longhui didn't react at all. Xingchen's strike speed was too fast, and this strength was also amazingly large. He deliberately provoked the stars, indeed to test the strength of the stars. But of course, he was preparing for a ninjutsu duel. Why would he have thought that Xingchen was actually a practitioner of physical arts? Darn, several members of the 3rd detachment saw that the captain was suffering, and immediately became furious, and they rushed up together. Stop. At this moment, a majestic cheer sounded. But it was Tuanzong who walked in slowly from outside with his 2 entourage. Master Tuanzo, you can be counted as back. Yamachi Ryuki's expression was a little hideous, but the hand bones were shattered, and for the ninja, it was actually not too serious an injury. As long as there is a medical ninja supplemented by medical ninjutsu, the bones can easily heal or grow back. What's going on? Tuanzong had a calm face, and it seemed that he was not in a very good mood. Sure, Xingchen, he is good at making claims, and he does not regard you as disrespectful at all, Lord Tuanzang. I just said 2 words to him, and he did something to me, and his attitude was very bad and arrogant. Tuanzong looked at the stars. What do you say? Xingchen took the intelligence map back from Yuna's hand, threw it casually to Tuanzong, and said, I have nothing to say, this is the map drawn by our team, and I handed it to you. Yuna, let's go. It wasn't until Xingchen turned around that Yuna woke up from her stunned look and quickly followed. Yamachi Ryuki and the people of the 3rd detachment were stunned. This kid is too bold, right? Danzo-sama, look at him. Okay, don't conflict with him for the time being, go down and heal your injuries yourself. This Tuanzang's icy tone could not be refuted, making Yamachi Longhui dare not say more. But in his heart, he was even more resentful. Sure, Xingchen, I will definitely repay this hatred. Captain, why do I feel that Tuanzo is very conniving at you? No matter how presumptuous you are in front of him, he will not say a word about you. Yuna found it unusual. Hokage indulges the stars, which is understandable, because Hokage has always been kind and generous. But Danzo is different. This person is much more unscrupulous than Hokage. That's what the old traitor is. It's not that he condones me, it's just that he has other plans. If you don't target me now, when you really want to target me, I'm afraid it will be a storm. Xingchen knows Tuanzong too well. Tuanzong is unscrupulous, but he is not a calculating person. Once he makes a move, it will definitely not be a small fight. It will definitely be earth-shattering and stormy. So, Captain, your situation is not very dangerous. How do I feel that you are deliberately provoking Tuanzong? No way, some consciousness is already ingrained, and when you see him, you get angry. This is no joke. Influenced by the original work, when Xingchen saw Tuanzong, he felt that his whole person was full of the smell of conspiracy, and he would subconsciously be wary. Okay, no more talking. Let's rest well these days. In a few days, Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu will also enter the Land of Rain, and the first shot of this second Ninja World War will probably be fired first by us. Episode 42. Inside the tent, the regiment was strategizing and calculating. Report to the regiment, Lord Zong. The news has come from the 14th Detachment that the Sand Shinobi and IWA Shinobi troops have been found on the border of the Land of Rain. Konoha could think of taking the lead and sending advance troops into the Land of Rain, and Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu could naturally think of it. Well, I see, you let the captains of the 3rd, 7th, and 9th detachments come over. I have a task assignment. Yes. Soon, Xingchen, Yamauchi Ryuki, and Yamashi, the captain of the 9th detachment, gathered in the camp tent. Master Tuanzo, is there something to summon us? Yamauchi asked. According to the information of the 14th Detachment, the Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobi forces have entered the territory of the Land of Rain, and we are going to start guarding them. The mountain agent asked, do you want to act separately? Good. Tuanzong nodded. The 7th Detachment went to the western town to keep an eye on the anti-sand ninja, and if there was any movement in the sand ninja, they would immediately report it. The 9th Detachment went to the south to keep an eye on IWA Shinobu, and it was the same. I see. What about you, Captain Star? But what questions do you have? Tuanzong asked Xingchen intentionally or unintentionally. What about the 3rd Detachment? Don't they have a mission? Xingchen glanced at Yamauchi Ryuki. The 3rd Detachment, together with me, has more important tasks. More important tasks? Xingchen frowned. Sure, Xingchen, pay attention to who you are talking to. Yamauchi Ryuki drank low. Tuanzong waved his hand and said indifferently, since it is an important task, it is not convenient to say more here. You can each do your own thing. I'm too lazy to worry about it. Xingchen shrugged and walked out of the tent. Captain, you have killed so many Sand Ninja elites, and Sand Shinobu has a high hatred value for you. Let's not reveal our whereabouts, or I'm afraid Shinobu will retaliate madly against us. Kawamoto worried. Don't worry, our identities are very hidden, unless someone deliberately reveals it, otherwise Sand Shinobu will not guess that it was us who performed the mission last time. That's right, our mission this time is only to investigate and keep an eye on them, and there is no need to clash with them head-on. Half a day later, they arrived in the western town, but they did not notice the Sand Ninja team for a while. Presumably the other party was also very careful and hidden. At this time, it is time to start testing the patience of both sides, and see who can't help but show the flaws first. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed, and the stars wandered around the town every day, but they still didn't notice any movement in Shinobu. Something is wrong. Is the intelligence of the 14th Detachment wrong? Yuna was suspicious. Xingchen also looked thoughtful. It is indeed unusual. It seems that I want to contact Tuanzong. Just when Yuna was about to contact Tuanzong with a psychic beast, she suddenly saw a puppy jumping over, and it was actually spitting human language. Sure, Xingchen, Master Tuanzong ordered you to rush to the south quickly. Xingchen knew that this little dog had also been a psychic beast, and couldn't help but ask, isn't the 9th Detachment in charge of the south? What's going on? Shinobu and IWA Shinobu appeared in the south at the same time, and clashed with the 9th Detachment. The 9th Detachment was seriously killed and wounded, and the captain Yamakaku was killed. What? The expressions of everyone changed greatly. Unexpectedly, the first shot of this war had been fired unknowingly, and Konoha almost lost a dark team. Go! Xingchen didn't have time to figure out what was going on, and he had to leave immediately to support. When I arrived at the stone bridge where the incident occurred in the south in the shortest possible time, there was no figure here except for traces of fighting. Soon, the 3rd Detachment of Danzo and Yamauchi Ryuki also rushed over. Sure, Xingchen, you did a good job. Yamauchi Ryuki couldn't help but say, and directly accused the stars, Sand Shinobu is being guarded by you. How could they appear here, and also join with IWA Shinobu to attack us? Konoha? Yuna said indignantly, we followed the instructions to the western town, but we didn't see the shadow of Shinobu there. If we want to blame, the intelligence of the 14th Detachment is wrong, and we have no knowledge of it in advance. Humph, quibbles, the death of the captain of the mountain intermediary, you can't get rid of it anyway. Xingchen's expression sank. Yamauchi Ryuki is an insignificant little character in his eyes, and many times he is too lazy to calculate with him. But the other party's repeated vexatious and provocative attacks annoyed him. Yamauchi Longhui, don't you just disobey me, thinking that the last time I pinched your hand bone, it was a sneak attack? Xingchen said coldly, it's better for us to try again, I'll give you the opportunity to perform ninjutsu. Okay, I'm just trying to teach you a good lesson. Yamauchi Ryuki really looked down on the stars in his heart. If he were to prepare to fight the stars again, he would think he was in good hands. Have you had enough? Tuanzong shouted angrily, your teammates have just died in battle, and you are still fighting each other here, draining your own strength and letting the enemy see the joke? Xingchen glanced at Yamauchi Longhui and said, then change the competition method. Since the captain of Yamauchi died at the hands of San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu, how about we compare who to avenge him first? Revenge? Yamauchi Longhui was slightly startled, he had never thought about this. The combination of Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu was originally stronger than Konoha. Now Konoha has lost another dark squad, and the situation is bad. In such a situation, it is natural to try to avoid San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu, waiting for the support of Konoha's army. Is it necessary to clash head-on with San Shinobu Iwa Shinobu? Captain Star, what are you going to do? Tuanzo looked at the stars suspiciously. Although the official troops of the three shinobi village have not yet entered the Land of Rain, the war has officially broken out. Since you are on the battlefield and can kill the enemy, why connivance? So, you think we should fight back against Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu? Of course. Xingchen said, now that we are weak, the enemy will definitely not think that we will fight back. At this time, maybe it was just right to surprise them and catch them off guard. The idea is good, but the world may not be satisfactory. This kind of action is too risky. If there is any accident, who will be responsible? Yamauchi Longhui sneered, I really don't know whether to say that you are young and frivolous, or that you are young and ignorant. This is not child's play. If we are not careful, we will wipe out the whole army. Xingchen's face did not change color. Since it is a sneak attack, it is not good to act if there are many people, and it can be completed independently by our 7th detachment. What? Yamauchi Ryuki was shocked. You are a detachment going to sneak attack the combined forces of San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobi? Episode 43. Yamauchi Ryuki, if you are interested, you can also do it with us. We split up to see who defeated the combined forces of Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu first. Xingchen said lightly. Yamauchi Longhui snorted coldly, I don't accompany you to go crazy, you are looking for death. It doesn't matter if you die, your gang will also die with you. Since you have entered the battlefield, you must have the consciousness to sacrifice at any time. Moreover, according to my method, San Shinobi was vulnerable. What a big breath. Yamauchi Ryuki sneered, if you can defeat San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu, Yamauchi Ryuki will immediately apologize to you, and I will see you take a detour in the future. This bet is too light, right? I'm working hard outside, and you just make a worthless promise? Xingchen glanced at Yamauchi Ryuki and said instead, but forget it, originally I was just fighting for Konoha, and nothing else. Tuanzong was silent for a while and said, Captain Xingchen, do you really plan to do this? You have to think clearly, this matter is too risky. If you insist on leaving the 7th detachment to carry out the mission alone, I will not give you any assistance. No need, wait for me to hear back. Xingchen said and turned to leave. Damn, who is this little ghost? He is too self-righteous, he will kill everyone in the 7th detachment. Yamauchi Ryuki said viciously, Danzo-sama, you. Before he finished speaking, Tuanzong stretched out his hand to stop him. Why don't you let him try? On the battlefield, it is inevitable to sacrifice a few people, but in case he succeeds, impossible, wait and see. Tuanzang's expression was indifferent, but there was a measure in his heart. Shirchi Xingchen, are you arrogant, or do you really have this kind of ability? In the south, near the border between the Land of Earth and the Land of Rain, a celebratory banquet is being held in a camp. Yotokuan, this time our Sand Ninja Village and Iwa Ninja Village have a very pleasant cooperation, and easily destroyed a dark team in Konoha. Indeed, although this battle is a small test, it also plays with momentum, which is a good sign. Yang Tujuan, since we have been so happy with our first cooperation, how about continuing to cooperate? Yang Tu hesitated and said, Your Excellency Yunin means have been cooperating in the future, first destroy Konoha? The cooperation between Shinobu and Shinobu was completely accidental, on a whim, and there was no planned contract in advance. Yang Tu understood that the Ninja World War was extraordinary. After entering the battlefield of the Land of Rain, they will be divided into camps and fight in 3 ways. After all, driven by interests, allies appear too unreliable. However, Shinobu proposed at this time that he had been cooperating on the battlefield and destroying Konoha first. Was there any other attempt? Well, I'm just a pioneer, I can't be the lord. If Your Excellency Yunin or Your Excellency Wind Shadow has a heart, just talk to us about tying. Yang Tu did not dare to make a good claim, and secondly, he did not trust Sand Shinobu very much, and he was afraid that Sand Shinobu would have other plans. Then let's talk about it. I and Yang Tajun have seen each other as before, and I really don't want to meet on the battlefield in the future. Yunin sighed. When Yang Tu heard this, he just smiled, but he had other ideas in his heart. He didn't believe that Yunin really saw him like this. Looking at Yunin's demeanor, it seemed that he was very aimed at Konoha, and he had a feud with Konoha. Well, no matter what the future holds, at least for today we are still allies. For this small victory, let's raise a glass to celebrate. Brother Yang Tu said so. As the leaders Yang Tu and Yunin laughed heartily, Sand Shinobu and Yun Shinobu under the table also toasted each other to celebrate. However, at this moment, a cold wind suddenly hit, and the green grass ground quickly condensed a layer of white frost. There are oddities, everyone be careful. Yunin drank loudly, and Sand Shinobu and Yun Shinobu were on guard at the same time. Wow! With a flash of light, a cold wind whistled in the distance, fell into the crowd, and plunged into the ground. Shinobu formed a circle and stared warily at the knife that suddenly flew in. This knife is extremely beautiful, crystal clear, like a cast of ice and snow. But this knife is extremely dangerous, and the icy chill is obviously emanating from this knife. Who pretends to be a ghost? Come out. Yang Tu looked around and drank. As you wish. When the words fell, a figure floated down from the air and landed smoothly on the handle of the knife in the field. Although the man wore a mask, he was obviously not old and a teenager. He stepped on the hilt of the sword and stood in the encirclement of Shinobu and IWA Shinobu. People from the dark side of Konoha? Yunin and Yang Tu's expressions changed. This young man's costume was so obvious, how could they not recognize it? Is there an enemy attack? Shinobu raised his guard everywhere. No need to look for it, it's just me. The stars stood on the white snow of their sleeves, standing with their hands in their hands, their tone indifferent, looking down on everyone. Alone? Yang Tu frowned. At this time, a sensing ninja of IWA Shinobu spoke. Chief, there is indeed no chakra reaction from others nearby. Good boy, what is the purpose of a person who dares to break into our place? Xingchen entered the camp alone, but it made everyone even more afraid to act rashly, for fear of fraud. Isn't that obvious? Xingchen said lightly, I represent Konoha, and you represent Shinobu and IWA Shinobu. We are now in a hostile relationship, and I came here to kill you. Yang Tu and Yunin were stunned at the same time, and then sneered, little ghost, do you know what you are talking about? They are the vanguard force, and there are indeed not many ninjas, but Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu combined, there are at least more than 10 upper shinobi. If a shadow-level powerhouse comes over, he is still qualified to say this. But a teenager, why should he? I don't know that there is a peerless demon in the dark part of Konoha, and he is already a shadow-level powerhouse at a young age. Of course, this is ironic, no one will believe that Xingchen will be a shadow-level powerhouse. You're a shinobi, aren't you? Xingchen looked at Yunin and said, Yen Shinobu doesn't know me, even you don't know me? Or do you have so many ninjas dying at my hands, that you don't care at all? When Yunin heard this, his expression suddenly changed. It's you. That's right, it's me. Xingchen took a deep breath, and then his gaze froze, triggering the power of ice and snow around him. Suddenly, behind it, a pair of ice and snow wings stretched out, which was eye-popping. But before it was over, Xingchen's right palm stretched out, and the blue chakra instantly condensed into a spiral pill. I've been in retreat for a long time, and I've learned a new technique. I didn't show it last time I fought against the big snake pill, so I tried it with you this time. Saying that, the stars once again urged the power of ice and snow and forcibly merged into the spiral pill. Spiral pills have no attributes, but if they are integrated with the power of ice and snow, their properties will change. Ice Dome Shuriken, Episode 44. Ice Dome Shuriken. The power of ice and snow gathered invisibly and was incorporated into the spiral pill. Suddenly, the spiral pill expanded violently, becoming several times larger, and became the chakra shuriken form. This is... What a scary chakra. Sand Ninja Yen Shinobu was all terrified. They couldn't imagine that a teenager could actually condense such a huge chakra. If you are hit by this, the shadow-level powerhouse will also be in danger. But this must be a one-time ninjutsu. As long as he is not hit, he is finished. Yang Tu's mind flew around, and he shouted at everyone, all back off. Retreat? Xingchen smiled sarcastically. If this can make you retreat, I might as well find a piece of tofu to kill me. As the words fell, only a boom sound was heard, and the ice and snow in the sky were like a waterfall, pouring down from the shuriken of Orochimaru. Ah! Can't move, help. Countless people became frightened, at this moment, as if the space was frozen, not to mention their feet, even any part of the body, could not move. Any struggle was in vain. How is it possible to get your wish? Yang Tu and Yunin are elite middle ninjas, and they have never seen any battles. Although the art of the stars is terrifying, it is not enough to make them despair and sit still. The two were very decisive, and the chakra in the body continued to gush out, but it was not a ninjutsu, just using chakra to create endless heat, which looked like burning chakra. Fighting ice and snow with heat is the most normal logical thinking. They need to melt the snow and ice to get a chance to escape. No, as long as you can move freely, maybe it is not difficult to kill the stars. Still dying, your desire to survive is very strong? Xingchen said, his palm suddenly clenched, and the shuriken in Orochimaru's hand shattered in an instant. Click, click, click. The sand ninja rock that turned into an ice sculpture at the scene endured several times, and as the ice sculpture shattered, its body exploded. Some people were only frozen hands and feet, so their hands and feet exploded, and their bodies were still unharmed. However, their hands and feet were broken, and they had completely become wasted people, and they could only lie on the ground, watching in horror as their companions withered one by one in the extremely beautiful ice flowers. This is a bloodless massacre. With just one move, 20 or 30 yen shinobi and sand shinobi were almost killed and injured. How terrifying. Ah, Yang Tu and Yunan also screamed. Compared to the others, they used chakra to dissolve a lot of ice, but the ice on their feet still had time to unravel. At this time, their feet also shattered with the ice and shattered, and they could no longer stand up. Even if you guys are a little capable, but it's about the same, right? The star jumped out from the handle of the sleeve white snow knife and landed in front of the two people. With a light move, the sleeve white snow automatically flew into the hand. Here is the battlefield. Killing, there is no need to say more. Laugh at. The sleeve white snow waved, two blood flowers splashed, Yang Tu and Yunan widened their eyes at the same time, and fell into the liquid mixed with melting ice and snow and blood. Huh? After killing the two, Xingchen suddenly frowned. He walked over and kicked Yunan's body away, where there was a very obvious hole in the ground. So that's the case, but it's careless. Xingchen knew that Yunan summoned a retreat-type psychic beast before he died, and I was afraid that the news would get out. But it doesn't matter, he has already killed so many ninjas in the Sand Ninja Village, and the hatred of the Sand Ninja Village for him has probably accumulated to the highest point. Captain, with a shout, 5 figures quickly flickered. It was Yuna and several people. What happened here? Yuna looked in disbelief at the stump and severed arm all over the ground, and several ninjas who were not completely dead, but only their bodies and heads remained. At the beginning, when Hogyoku told them about the mission to attack Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu, they were still very bottomless in their hearts, thinking that Xingchen was indeed a little too presumptuous. However, when they acted just now, Xingchen let them stay 3 miles away and went to the enemy camp alone to investigate. They waited for a long time, afraid that something would happen to the stars, so they came to take a look. Unexpectedly, Xingchen didn't come to explore at all. He directly with Sand Ninja Rock Shinobu alone, and completely destroyed the Sand Ninja Rock Shinobi troops. Although Yuna knew that Xingchen's strength was above her, it was not so strong, right? Captain, you destroyed them all by yourself? Xingchen nodded and said, well, after thinking about it, I still think it's good to fight quickly. You are involved, but you are in a hurry. The ice-done spiral pill shuriken can be said to have incorporated the power of the sleeve white snow liberation into the spiral pill. To say that in the original work, Naruto's Kazudon spiral pill shuriken is not worth mentioning compared to this technique. Yuna and the others all took a breath and looked at each other. What kind of evil captain are they with? Okay, clean up here, bring the people who are still alive back to Tuanzong. It can be regarded as a task. Xingchen said, and paused again, but if Tuanzong asks, you can answer that the 6 of us can complete the task together. I'm afraid that even if the 6 of us did it together, Tuanzong would be shocked. When Yuna reported to Tuanzong with several corpses and news, Tuanzong was shocked for the first time, just as Yuna thought. He carefully examined the corpses again and again, still not seeming to be convinced. Did you really wipe out the vanguard forces of Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu? Yes, none of the people present escaped and were all destroyed by us. Yuna acted calmly, because she had already made sufficient mental preparations. No way, I don't believe it's true. Yamauchi Ryuki couldn't accept it. Regarding the contradiction between Yamauchi Ryuki and Xingchen, Yuna also knew it, so she couldn't help but laugh. Captain Yamauchi, what you can't do yourself, do you think others must not be able to do it? Our captain is not like you. Bastard, what are you, dare to talk to me like that? Yamauchi Ryuki was furious. Humph, you are just a superior ninja, except for the identity of the dark captain. In other aspects, you may not be as strong as me. Yuna said without pretense, but I don't fight with you either, but this time you lost to our captain, don't forget your promise. Episode 45, Konoha, Hokage's office. The 3 generations of Hokage held the news from the Land of Rain in their hands, and after carefully studying it, they showed a thoughtful expression. In the office, Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Jiraiya were listed at the same time. What's wrong, Sarutobi-sensei? Tsunade asked, is there any news from the stars? Jiraiya smiled and said, Tsunade, you're too nervous about that little ghost. This letter is a battlefield message from Tuanzang, and it will not specifically mention him. Tsunade glared at Jiraiya, but couldn't refute his words. Jiraiya, you're wrong. The 3rd generation of Hokage suddenly said, this letter also happens to be about Shurichi Xingchen. Jiraiya, what's wrong with the stars? Tsunade looked impatient. Although with Xingchen's current strength, she should also have the power to protect herself on the battlefield, she still couldn't help but worry. After all, no matter what, Xingchen is too young, he has only graduated from the ninja school for about a year, and his qualifications are insufficient. The four dark teams led by Tuanzo clashed with IWA Shinobu at the first time. IWA Shinobu and Sand Shinobu joined forces and unexpectedly destroyed one of our detachments. Huh? Tsunade exclaimed. The third generation Hokage immediately explained, don't worry, Shichi Xingchen is fine, it is Yamauchi Longhui's 9th detachment that was destroyed. When Tsunade heard this, he breathed a sigh of relief. It's interesting that Shinobu and IWA Shinobu can actually unite. The big snake pill skin smiled and did not smile, and it looked a little gloomy. There should be quite a lot of contradictions between Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu, and they can also unite on the battlefield, which is indeed abnormal. Zilai also became solemn, but what about Shichi Xingchen? Yes, Mr. Ape Fei, don't sell the lawsuit, hurry up. Tsunade urged. The third generation of Hokage did not have time, but asked, what if you were on the battlefield and encountered the union of Shinobu and IWA Shinobu? Although reluctant, it seems that I can only temporarily avoid the front and wait for support. Orochimaru replied, even the big snake pill you said so, it seems to be a normal person's logical thinking, but do you know how Shichi Xingchen did? The third generation of Hokage paused and said, he led the 7th detachment and went directly to attack Shinobu and IWA Shinobu. Huh? Orochimaru touched his chin and thought, do you do the opposite, but it is an unexpected artist who is bold, and the result? Tsunade now only cares about the safety of the stars, see for yourself. The third Hokage passed the letter in his hand to Tsunade. Tsunade immediately took it, swept it with a glance, and saw the end directly. Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu vanguard troops, all destroyed? Tsunade thought he had read it wrong, and looked at it carefully. However, the letter clearly states that Hogyoku led the 7th detachment to annihilate all the IWA Shinobi and Sand Shinobi forces, including 9 Kami Shinobi and 2 elite Kami Shinobi. This kid is getting more and more interesting. After reading it, Orochimaru showed a playful smile. Big Snake Pill, it seems that the last time he fought you, he didn't use his full strength. Zilai also said, even if you lead a dark team, you may not be sure that you can destroy so many people, right? If it is unexpected, the time and place are favorable, and there should still be some opportunities. The big snake pill is also not presumptuous and comments very objectively, but he knew that if Xingchen could do this, he would at least be no worse than him. You three have to come on, as my disciple, you can't be compared to someone so much younger than you, can you? Tsunade smiled and said, Xingchen is not an ordinary person, his future achievements will definitely be higher than Sarutobi-sensei, and it is not a shame to be compared to him. Ahem, the third generation Hokage coughed lightly, thinking that this Tsunade was too faceless for himself. Although he was also happy to see Konoha produce a peerless genius, he still wanted this face. Well, since the war has already fired the first shot, you should rush to the battlefield and advance. The third generation of Hokage said solemnly, after this battle, Sand Shinobu and IWA Shinobu may truly ally, and we Konoha may be very passive. Yes. The three responded in unison. The Konoha ninja army officially flooded into the Land of Rain on a large scale. At the same time, Shinobu was furious when he learned that the vanguard troops were completely destroyed, and the same whole army was dispatched to the country of Rain. The Second Ninja World War, the fire of war was completely ignited, and it was about to break out. On this day, Tuanzong received a letter, and after reading it, his expression changed several times, and then he called Xingchen and everyone from the 7th detachment over. Tuanzong, this will come to us, what's the matter? Hogyoku asked, Konoha should have sent an army to the Land of Rain, is it to join them? Nope. Danzo shook his head and said, we and the army of Konoha are not the same way, each has its own tasks. They are responsible for charging and killing the enemy, and we are biased towards intelligence work. So. Xingchen nodded, then what are you looking for us for? Come with me to meet someone, huh? Xingchen was sensitive and asked, what people? You know when you see it, come with me. Tuanzong didn't want to say more. The stars groaned. Looking at Tuanzang's mysterious appearance, this person's identity must be unusual. But if he wants to see such a person, he should bring his own henchmen, why should he let himself follow? And his intuition told him that the person Tuanzong wanted to see must be related to the last few days of his disappearance. Who will it be? With doubts, Xingchen did not refuse, took Yuna and a few people, and followed Tuanzo towards the center of the Land of Rain. Walking on the road, Xingchen thought about it repeatedly, and suddenly seemed to have guessed something, and quietly whispered to Yuna and the others, this time I am afraid of fraud, be careful. Yuna was puzzled. Tuanzo wouldn't have deliberately harmed them, right? However, with an attitude of trust in the stars, several people still left a heart. Half a day later, the group came to a dense forest, and Tuanzong stopped. Here, presumably, it must be the agreed place of the mysterious person and the group. After waiting for a long time, Tuanzong seemed a little impatient, and said indifferently, Hanzo, since you are here, why don't you show up? When Xingchen heard this, he raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, as he guessed, the person that Danzo wanted to see was the leader of the Rain Country, Hanzo. Episode 46. In the original work, it is mentioned that Danzo and Hanzo colluded against the original Shao organization, resulting in Yahiko's death, and the mentality of Uzumaki Nagato and Konan changed dramatically. However, that was something that happened many years later. But I don't know Danzo and Hanzo. It turns out that there was contact in the Second Shinobi World War. Haha. Your Excellency Tuanzong is really punctual. With a loud laugh, a man wearing a gas mask strode out. Hanzo the pepperfish, the leader of the Land of Rain. Say, what's the matter with looking for me this time? Tuanzong also felt that something was strange. The last time I talked to Hanzo about cooperation, he refused. This time, he suddenly wrote that he had figured it out, met and talked, and said that he would take Shiqi Xingchen's 7th detachment. The two of them talked about things. What did they have to bring with a Shiqi Xingchen for? However, suspicion aside, Danzo did so, because even if Hanzo had another purpose, he would not dare to ambush him. Besides, he's not a vegetarian. With his shadow-level strength, to keep him, unless the Land of Rain pours out, it is delusional. Your Excellency Tuanzong, the purpose of this time has already been stated in my heart, so I don't need to repeat it more, right? Hanzo said with a squint. Tuanzong frowned. Did you sincerely decide to cooperate? How else? What are the conditions? Tuanzong knew that if Hanzo really agreed to cooperate, it would have its purpose and conditions. Your Excellency Tuanzong is really quick to talk. Hanzo said, suddenly looked at the stars behind the group, and said with a smile, this must be the genius who annihilated San Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu in one fell swoop a few days ago, and he really has a young age. Xingchen said indifferently, Hanzo, if you have any purpose, just say it, I am not afraid that you will target me. Hanzo stared at Hanzo, it's really surprisingly smart and calm. Do you know that my target is you this time? What do you want to do? When Yuna, Kawamoto, and the others heard this, they immediately made a vigilant look and guarded around the stars. The pepperfish let out a mocking laugh. If you enter my game, can resistance be useful? Hanzo. Tuanzong couldn't hold back any longer, and shouted, anyway, Shiqi Xingchen is also my person, I can't watch you move him. Moreover, what position do you have to move him? At first, Tuanzong had a heart for the stars, but through several trials, he figured out the character of Xingchen. This kind of person, without bending his waist for the powerful, is impossible to submit to him, so he gradually dismissed this idea. At this time, he has a little appreciation for the stars and is also a little guarded. Although he covets the position of Hokage, he also hopes that Konoha will rise to the top. As long as the stars are not completely on the opposite side of him, he will not take the initiative to target the stars. After all, this is indeed a good seedling. What position? Let me tell you, what position? At this moment, with an angry roar, several figures appeared out of thin air, and the branch surrounded the group of people in the dense forest. Beside the half-hidden, 3 figures also appeared, led by a man wearing a white cloak. 3 generations of Mechazekage. Hanzo's expression changed suddenly, staring at the man in the white cape. This person is none other than the master of the Sand Ninja Village today, who is called the 3 generations of Mikei's shadow by later generations as the strongest wind shadow. Hanzo, you actually colluded with Shinobu? Tuanzong drank and reprimanded. The 3rd generation of Mechazekage said coldly, Danzo, you and Hanzo are called cooperation, and I and Hanzo are called collusion, right? Hanzo said, Danzo, compared to Wind Shadow, your chips are really not worth mentioning. Your Excellency Wind Shadow is determined to get rid of this talent under you this time, don't blame me. Tuanzo understood that San Shinobi Village paid a very big price in order to kill Shiqi Xingchen and cooperated with Hanzo. And this kind of price is something Konoha can't afford. Or in other words, even if Konoha could afford it, he was not willing to exchange it for a Shichi star. At this moment, even Xingchen couldn't help frowning. At present, he has no bottom in his heart for this dilemma. Hanzo is the one who has joined forces with the 3 shinobi, and the 3 generations of Mechazekage are known as the strongest wind shadows in history. The strength of the 2 of them is above Tuanzong and himself. There are also dozens of upper shinobi in the surrounding area of Ninja Village and Sand Ninja Village. More importantly, there is a man and a woman next to the 3 generations of Mikei's shadow. They seem to be the attendants of the 3 generations of Mikei's shadow, and the lower limit of strength is at the elite level of patience. Protect Master Tuanzo. Danzo also has 2 entourage, elite ninjas from the route, who are loyal to Danzo. Captain, what should I do? In this case, compared to Tuanzong, Yuna, and the others are obviously more focused on the stars. This time is different, you can't fall in love with war. Any of you have any chance, break through immediately, don't look ahead, save your life is the most important. It's not that the stars teach them to be selfish, it's just here and now. Tuanzong, I'm here for this little ghost. If you don't want to die here together, leave immediately, and I won't stop you. The third generation of Mikazing was condescending and said to Tuanzong indifferently. In fact, it's not that he doesn't want to kill Tuanzong, but with Tuanzang's strength, if he sincerely wants to escape, even if he joins forces with Hanzo, it will be difficult to keep him. If even Xingchen slipped away because of the difficult group, then he would have suffered a big loss. For now, the value of Xingchen is greater than that of Tuanzong. Tuanzang's expression had regained his composure, and he said indifferently, I brought the people, if I let you kill like this, what face will I have? Oh? The third generation of Mekazine raised his eyebrows. So, you are going to give your subordinates a burial? It's really not like your style, why bother with nonsense, just do it. Tuanzo lifted chakra, making a seal gesture with both hands, as if preparing for a mortal battle. Hanzo and the three generations of Mekazekage froze, and their hearts were guarded. Although Tuanzong may not be able to win any of them, after all, he is also a shadow level, and if they really want to fight to the death, they dare not underestimate it. However, at this moment, Tuanzong and the two entourage exchanged a look, and the three of them understood and united to seal the seal. Transient transfer technique. Wow. In a flash of light, the three disappeared directly from the spot, and actually used space ninjutsu directly to escape. Episode 47. Listening to Tuanzang's words before, everyone thought that he really wanted to fight to the death with Hanzo and the three generations of Wind Shadow. But apparently, Tuanzang was just a delaying measure. The three generations of Wind Shadow said that they only targeted the stars, and they were not embarrassed. However, Tuanzong was so cautious that he did not believe it at all. He was afraid that the three generations of Wind Shadow deliberately said this, which made him relax his vigilance and suddenly sneak up on him. After all, now is in the battlefield, as a high-ranking member of Konoha, he can kill him. It is a very heavy blow to Konoha, and the three generations of Wind Shadow should not give up such a good opportunity. And he was the same, deliberately making a fighting posture, so that the three generations of Kazekage and Hanzo were on guard for a while, and did not dare to attack rashly. At this moment, he suddenly used the teleportation technique with two of his subordinates to escape, unexpectedly, and it was completely too late for Wind Shadow to chase. This Tuanzo. After the three generations of Fengying were stunned, they laughed playfully. Ben had no intention of leaving Tuanzong, so Tuanzong fled, and he didn't care at all. Little ghost, your end has come. The three generations of Wind Shadows stared viciously at the stars. Without Tuanzang's interference, he didn't believe that the stars could still run away. Bastard Tuanzong, sold us all. Yuna was indignant. Captain, let's kill it, we can't sit still. Kawamoto and several people know that death is approaching, and they have consciousness. The only person present who was the calmest was the stars. In the beginning, he did not expect the old traitor Tuanzang to stay and fight with them. Tuanzang never puts himself in a disadvantageous position. In order to save his life, sacrifice a few people, what is it? Everyone leans together. Xingchen suddenly gave the order very seriously. Everyone trusted the stars very much, and without saying a word, they leaned shoulder to shoulder and circled in a circle. In this way, it seems that it is possible to guard against enemies on all sides. The three generations of Wind Shadow and Tuanzong sneered at the same time. Foolishness, with a few of you, do you still want to resist? You can't just grab it, at least give it a try. Xingchen said, and suddenly made a spell with one hand, and gently pressed Yuna's shoulder with the other hand. This is... The three generations of Wind Shadow's expression changed, and he shouted, stop him quickly. However, it was simply too late. I saw a flash of white light in place, and Xingchen and the others disappeared without a trace like Tuanzong. The same instantaneous technique as Danzo? Hanzo's tone was tinged with surprise. No, this is not an instantaneous technique, but a timespace ninjutsu. The third generation of Wind Shadow said solemnly, it was invented and created by the second generation of Hokage, and it is called Flying Thunder God. Flying Thor? Good, don't compare Tuanzang's instantaneous technique with this technique, the two are not the same level at all. Tuanzang's instantaneous technique, if you and I have the intention, it is still possible to stop it. But the Flying Thunder God, once cast, there is no trace at all. The three generations of Wind Shadow murmured, but what? That little devil is so young, his attainment in the Flying Thunder God should be limited. Moreover, the three of Tuanzong joined forces to perform the spell, and only then did they transfer in an instant. He performed the spell alone, but escaped with 6 people, and the distance was definitely not too far. That is, they are still nearby? The three generations of Wind Shadow shouted to everyone present, pass on the order, block a radius of 30 miles, and never let Xingchen and them escape. In order to snipe Xingchen, they spent such a big price, how could they miss it? Your Excellency Wind Shadow, since I have received your benefits, then my Yuninja village should also do a little bit. Hanzo said, my people will cooperate with your actions, knowing that this rain country is my territory. Then thank you. Yuna and the others only felt that in the blink of an eye, the surrounding spatial environment changed. Just now, it was still a trapped beast, put to death. And now, there is a clear surrounding area, and there is no half of a figure. This is the road we just passed? Yuna was shocked. In the blink of an eye, how did we get here? The place where they were now was at least 7 or 8 miles away from where they were a second ago. In the blink of an eye, 6 people teleported 7 or 8 miles together. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Captain, what did you do? Xingchen said, I didn't feel right on the way here, so I left the mark of the flying thunder god, which just came in handy. Xingchen thought to himself that it was really thanks to keeping an eye. Otherwise I am afraid that I would really suffer a loss this time. Even if he is not afraid, Yuna and Kawamoto are also burdensome. Flying Thunder God. It seems to be the trick of the second generation Hokage. The captain actually knows this move. To be honest, I didn't seriously learn to fly Thor, so I wasn't very proficient. Flying so far with you is already the limit. During the period of obtaining the seal scroll, Xingchen mainly learned psychic arts. As for the powerful ninjutsu such as flying thunder gods and mutual detonation charms, he only roughly involved in them, and did not really put in the effort to comprehend them. This time, he barely used the flying thunder god technique, which was the first attempt. However, the effect seems to be good, and there are no mistakes. Perhaps it's the help of Banyu. Xingchen touched his heart. He doesn't think he's stupid, but he's not a peerless genius either. However, since he fused with Hongyu, he learned anything. He felt that he could achieve twice the result with half the effort, and if he roughly touched it once, he could have extraordinary achievements. Captain, if it weren't for you, I'm afraid our 7th detachment would have been wiped out several times. Yuna sighed. Yes, the 3 generations of Wind Shadow personally dispatched and set up a siege to kill us, 2 shadow level and dozens of upper shinobi, so they were all escaped by us. And Wind Shadow is estimated to be angry to death. After getting out of the predicament, several people relaxed a lot, talking and laughing. However, Xingchen said seriously, now is not the time to relax. The 3rd generation of Wind Shadows is not an ordinary character. I am afraid that he guessed that we did not escape too far, and he would send people to hunt us down. Then let's leave quickly. Several people tensed up again. Yuna, it's still the same as last time. I'm going to act separately from you, so be careful. Captain, you're going to. Yuna knew that Xingchen acted alone, and he definitely wanted to interfere with Shinobu's pursuit of them and create a better chance for them to escape. My ability, I think you should know it well by now. Rest assured, even if you can't beat it, self-protection is still no problem, Xingchen said, and then emphasized, if the breakthrough is successful, don't go to Tuanzong. Go and join the army of Konoha. Tsunade should already be in the land of rain by now. In this world, if you really want Xingchen to pick out the person you trust the most, only Tsunade. Yuna pondered a little, then nodded solemnly. Good. Episode 48. Yuna and the others broke through from the bright road, while the stars were invisible in the dark and escorted them. Several times they encountered several waves of sieges from Shinobu, but they were all small characters, and Xingchen used thunder to clear the way, allowing Yuna and them to escape safely. Next, it's time for us to maneuver. The star's eyes shimmered. Sand Shinobu set up an ambush against him, and if he really escaped like this, he would not be sure Xingchen. Revenge is his basic principle of being a man. Swish! The white light flashed, and the stars turned around and returned in the original direction. It's really a shame, this company hunted for 2 days. It was our squad that ran into that little ghost, and as a result, it couldn't wait for our support, and the detachment was destroyed. Yes, that little devil is very good at analyzing the situation and has been breaking through to our weakest position, which is really infuriating. I'm afraid they have already left our search range. If Lord Wind Shadow knows, I don't know how to be angry. This time we have a big loss. Inside the dense forest, a 7-man sand ninja force was discussing around a fire. Is it, so you guys are the elite troops of shinobi? At this moment, a cold and unruly voice sounded, causing the 7 people to be on alert at the same time. Who pretends to be a ghost? Come out. Swish. A figure landed and stood face to face in front of them, unscrupulous. Are you? All 7 looked at the stars in shock, and their brains couldn't turn around. Shouldn't this kid escape their encirclement now? Why did he run here again and take the initiative to show up? Me? Xingchen was not in a hurry, and said indifferently, I heard that you are complaining that I didn't run into you, otherwise you can take me? Now, I'm giving you that chance. What an arrogant little ghost, you are looking for death. A man wrapped in an overcoat stood up, his eyes shining coldly, approaching the stars. Another woman in a windbreaker stood close to the man, a little further back. Xingchen scanned the two and found that they were the 2 people who had followed the 3 generations of Wind Shadow 2 days ago, and they were most likely Wind Shadow's attendants. And looking at the demeanor and small movements of these 2 people, they are obviously very good partners. Even, it could be a couple. Oh, it seems that my luck is really good. If you die, the 3 generations of Wind Shadow are afraid that the flesh will hurt for a long time. So that's the case, you took the initiative to show up, you came to kill us? Of course, is it possible to come out and surrender? Xingchen smiled and said, I have a bad problem, and I will report it. The woman in the trench coat said coldly, young people don't know the height of the sky. If you want to kill us, you also want you to have that ability. I've killed so many elites of your sand shinobi. Isn't that enough to prove my skills? The trench coat woman was stunned, but she couldn't refute it. He is indeed not an ordinary opponent, but as long as everyone is careful, it is not difficult to take his life. The man in the coat said, it is up to me and Yami to attack, and you wait for the opportunity. Both sides already know that it is redundant to continue the dispute, and it is better to speak by strength. The winner lives, the loser dies. Secret puppet raid. Suddenly, the man in the coat moved first, but his hands were crossed, and 10 chakra threads gushed out of his 10 fingers, controlling the 2 puppets who had long been buried underground. Rumble. The 2 puppets broke through the ground, facing the stars, staggering left and right to kill each other. Huh? This sudden move made Xingchen a little unexpected. If you are generally tolerant, under this kind of sudden attack, I am afraid that it will be impossible to prevent. Even if it does not kill you, at least you will fall into a passive situation. Fortunately, the star body skill is extremely high, and he easily avoided the attack of the 2 puppets. The stars leapt up the treetops and stared at the men and women. Are you? A man and a woman who use puppet techniques are still so clever. Could it be the parents of the red sand scorpion? If so, that's a coincidence. In the original work, the parents of the red sand scorpion died at the hands of Kiki Shua Shigeru, creating the legend of Konoha White Fang, which is not inferior to the 3 shinobi. Now, these 2 people appeared in front of him and were listed as targets for him to kill. Very good reaction and speed, but you were so surprised. Can you not recognize us? The man in the coat asked strangely. I guess I recognize it. Xingchen nodded and played with the taste, but don't think about making friends with me, knowing who you are, but it has aroused my determination to kill you. Xingchen's words completely angered the 2. Secret Golem Windblade. The 2 puppets were manipulated, and they were actually sealed in unison, performing the wind escape ninjutsu, and they had already attacked the stars with the blade of the wind. The puppet casts ninjutsu. It's not bad. Xingchen was just surprised at first that these 2 were the parents of the scorpion. But now that he was on guard, the attacks of these puppets were not a threat to him. With a jump, the stars bypassed the puppet and instantly came to the rear of the 2 scorpion parents. Oops, everyone be careful. However, this force, except for the 2 scorpion parents who are very strong, the other 5 are only elite shinobi. Although the stars talk about chakra, it is only the elite ninja level, but the real elite was completely vulnerable in front of him. Whoosh! The stars cast explosive moves, crisscrossing between the 5 people, and the sharp Ku-Wu brought out a series of blood flowers in an instant. Before the 5 elite Zongnin could react, they could only cover their throats and unwillingly fall in a pool of blood. You! Damn it! The scorpion parents were furious. If you want to kill me, you should be enlightened. In a team battle, it is common sense to solve the weak first. Xingchen said, his tone suddenly turned cold, but don't worry, your fate will be the same next. Then try it. The father of the scorpion was obviously furious to the extreme. He no longer had the patience to touch the stars, and he planned to fight quickly. Maya, understood. The 2 cooperate very tacitly, and they can understand each other's thoughts with just one look. Next, comprehend our tricks, and hope that we will continue to be tough later. Are you going to score the victory in one move, stupid act? But if you insist on it, it is not impossible to fulfill you. Battles between ninjas are strategic and adaptable. Ninjutsu is ever-changing, and if you are not careful, if you hit the tricks of the upper ninja, you may also be killed in an instant. The so-called lower patience, middle tolerance, and upper patience are only a distinction of hard power, and it does not mean that upper patience can win middle patience with closed eyes. Therefore, the scorpion parents directly make a big move, the stars can completely dodge, do not hard connect head-on, and then wait for the opportunity, but just like that, the battle may drag on for a long time. Obviously, Xingchen at this time did not want to waste time, he also wanted to fight quickly. Episode 49. The scorpion's parents cooperate seamlessly and use strong moves, intending to win with one move and kill the stars. Secret puppet 10 steps hell. As the scorpion father drank loudly, 10 puppets broke out from the ground, forming an encirclement and besieging the stars. 10 steps of hell, it's really the name of the wind. Xingchen glanced at the 10 puppets, but he was a little unimpressed in his heart. 10 fingers connected, 10 puppets seemed to be the largest number that the puppeteer can control. But Xingchen knew that the future genius red sand scorpion would be able to perform 100 maneuvers at the same time, which was enough to destroy a country. Compared with the 100 machine exercise, this small 10 puppets are insignificant. 10 steps to hell, as the name suggests, within 10 steps, take your life. The scorpion father shouted, so far, no one has been able to survive in the 10-step hell. Yes, it looks like this record is going to be broken today. Xingchen smiled coldly and jumped out in one step. He did not use ninjutsu, but simply relied on his physical strength to slam a punch on a puppet. Pung! Bombarded by huge forces, the puppet could not bear it and immediately fell apart. Oh, that's not right. However, at this time, Xingchen felt that something was wrong, and his expression couldn't help but change. Very good power, but that's the end of it. The scorpion father's eyes narrowed, as if he saw the tragic situation of the corpse of the stars. Rumble. The fragmented puppet was not scrapped, but it became a powerful explosive bomb that exploded directly. The brilliant aurora makes it impossible to open your eyes. It's a surprise. 10 steps of hell. 10 puppets are all super bombs. This is a self-destructive puppet that is not at all afraid of you breaking it. The scorpion father could not see the condition of the stars clearly, but he believed that even a shadow-level powerhouse would be hit hard if he was bombarded by a puppet bomb defenselessly. But just hitting hard is not enough. Against an enemy like you can't be merciful. Go ahead. Under the manipulation of the scorpion father, the remaining 9 puppets rushed to the direction where the stars were located. Boom! A series of earth-shattering explosions shook the sky, almost flattening this dense forested land. Under such an explosion, let alone people, even flying insects and beasts, they cannot escape. Even if it is a shadow level, in this kind of explosion, there is no possibility of living. The scorpion father muttered to himself, seemed to comfort himself, and barely breathed a sigh of relief. Fighting with the stars, although it was a short time, was the most stressful battle in his life. Don't look at his disdain for the stars, but he is very jealous in his heart, otherwise he would not have performed his trick so quickly. Maya, let's get out of here right away. Father Scorpion suddenly said eagerly. The scorpion mother asked strangely, don't confirm if he is dead? Bring his body back, or explain it to the wind shadow. In that kind of explosion, there must be no bones left. The scorpion father seems to be psychologically comforting. The mother scorpion glanced at him, but nodded anyway. However, just as the two were about to leave, a playful voice sounded. The battle is not over yet. Do you want to escape first? Hearing this familiar voice, the scorpion parents' expressions changed drastically at the same time. After Yuna and the stars separated, they obeyed the orders of the stars and did not go to the group, but went to the Konoha army that was fighting on the front line. As soon as Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya joined the battlefield, they immediately swept around with the momentum of thunder, making the enemy fearful. Even if Sand Shinobu and Iwa Shinobu joined forces several times, they were defeated by the troops led by the 3. Of course, when the 3 were tired, they also suffered a lot of injuries, and they are quietly recuperating these days. As a medical ninja, Tsunade is naturally busy on the battlefield. At this time, he was healing the injured Jiraiya when he heard the report from the guards outside. Tsunade-sama, there are a few people outside who call themselves the Dark Department asking for a meeting. People in the dark part, is it the stars? Tsunade's heart moved, and he casually threw a towel over Jiraiya's head. Take care of the wounds yourself, I'll meet them. When he heard this, he didn't even have time to say anything to refute it, and Tsunade had already walked out. So urgent, could it be that the kid is here? Zeelai also treated the wound casually, and also ran out in a hurry. After waiting for a moment outside the tent, Yuna saw Tsunade. Tsunade is younger than Yuna, but Yuna admires Tsunade. Miss Tsunade, we are from the 7th detachment of the Dark Department. The captain is Shirchi Xingchen. He asked us to come to you. What's wrong with the stars? Tsunade didn't see the stars, so he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Captain, Yuna hesitated, and then said the matter as it was. What, bastard Tuanzong? When Tsunade heard this, he immediately became furious. The first thing she was angry about was not Hanzo and the 3 generations of Wind Shadow who surrounded and killed Xingchen, but Tuanzo, who abandoned Xingchen and fled at the first time. Yuna was relieved to see Tsunade's appearance. Tsunade launched a rush, and no one in Konoha was not afraid, not even the 3 generations of Hokage. Danzo has a high position, and the 3 generations of Hokage have many scruples and will not have any conflicts with him, but Tsunade is different. Tuanzo's flight without a fight is a stain on him. If he wants to cover up this stain, it is unknown what he will do. So the stars asked them to come to Tsunade to prevent the group. Miss Tsunade, rest assured, the captain's strength is unfathomable, and escaping should be safe and sound. Tsunade quickly calmed down as well, and said, I believe in the stars, and will not do anything that I am not sure of. But anyway, I should check it out. Tsunade, there are 2 shadow levels on the other side, can you go alone? Jiraiya came over and said, who said that I went alone? You and Orochimaru came with me. Tsunade was very arrogant, and his tone could not be refused. I'm not healed from this injury. Jiraiya pointed to the bandage on his hand. As soon as Tsunade stretched out his hand, he directly toward Jiraiya's bandage and said angrily, this little injury, you can die, ouch. Zeelai also grinned in pain and burst into tears. Can't I go? Episode 50. Orochimaru returned from the battlefield, and before he could understand what was going on, he was dragged along by Tsunade Jiraiya. On the way, the big snake pill heard about the stars, but he didn't have any opinions. Tuanzong, this person is not your first day of contact, this is normal. If it were me, I might run away. Orochimaru said indifferently, you're embarrassed to say it. Tsunade glared at Orochimaru. Human nature is like this, and the group is in a high position. In comparison, a Shuri star is nothing, only you value him more than anyone. Although the words of the big snake pill are ruthless, it is not unreasonable to think about it. Danzo in Konoha can be said to be the second in command after Hokage, holding an important position and holding a very important position. If you really have to choose between Tuanzong and Xingchen, then you don't need to think about it, the star must be the abandoned one. You're right, to me, no one is more important than the stars. If something happens to him, I will never let Tuanzong go. It seems that I have to pray that the little devil is not in trouble, otherwise this battle has not been fought, and we will prepare for a civil strife. Orochimaru said half-jokingly. Where the three people of Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya are, no one dares to take their edge, whether it is the ninja of the Land of Rain or the ninja of the Sand Ninja Village, they all retreat when they encounter it. Soon, they broke into the hinterland of the Land of Rain, almost at the foot of the Rain Ninja Village. Don't go any deeper. With the strength of the three of us, it's not enough to directly kill into the Ninja village, that's looking for death. Orochimaru reminded, although it has been singing all the way in the past few days, the big snake pill has self-awareness, and the three of them join forces, and they don't dare to say that the world is invincible. There are also many elites in Ninja village and Sand Ninja village, and if they join forces, or set up a little trap, they will also hate it. What's more, there is the peak ninja Hanzo of the famous ninja world, Yamachi-yu, and the three generations of Wind Shadows. If they meet, I am afraid that they will be fierce. But all the way, why didn't you see the stars? Tsunade wondered, looking at Yuna. Yuna shook her head and said, we don't know the traces of the captain either. If the stars are safe and sound, and hear the wind, they should take the initiative to find us. After all, we are also very high profile these days, killing a lot of Sand Ninja and Rain Ninja. Tsunade's heart became uneasy. Could it be that something happened to Xingchen? It's very high profile, but is it too arrogant? At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded, be careful. The big snake pill immediately made a look of caution. He knew that it was not easy to come. Congratulations on killing the elite Shainin, and the reward is 1,000 points. Congratulations on breaking the boundary, breaking through the upper patience, opening the sky covering time and space, and getting an additional 10,000 points reward. Congratulations on triggering the hidden achievement. The system will open the God-level draw area for you and receive a free God-level lottery opportunity. The stars Tsunade was looking for were hidden in a hidden cave. After killing 2 elite upper ninja of the Scorpion's parents, he successfully broke through to the upper ninja level. However, this is not over. After becoming a Shainin, the system not only opened the sky covering time and space for him, but also added a God-level lottery area. From the moment he got the system, Xingchen had doubts. This system is called the God-level lottery system, but there are only 3 lottery areas of ordinary, intermediate and advanced, which are completely incompatible with the God-level lottery. Now he understood that the God-level lottery area was a hidden function that required certain conditions to trigger. The first time he forcibly extracted the broken jade obtained, if he followed the normal process, it must be something that could only be drawn in the God-level lottery area. The prizes drawn in the God-level lottery area must all be at the same level as Bangyu, or even above Hongyu. The God-level lottery area lottery requires the consumption of 500,000 points, but I now have a chance to free God-level lottery. Xingchen thought about it, and he couldn't wait to get up, so he gave up his mind to fight guerrilla warfare with Shinobu and found a quiet place. Conduct a God-level lottery. The stars gave the order. You now have a free God-level lottery opportunity, no need to consume points. The draw is being conducted for you. The source covering time and space, please later. The time required for the God-level draw seemed to be very long, and in the process of waiting, Xingchen kept thinking about it. Covering the sky time and space, I don't know how many dimensions higher than the time and space of the god of death, the time and space of the fire shadow, and the time and space of Doshao. The things produced here, any one, are enough to crush the Hokage world. It took more than 10 minutes for the system to respond. Hey, congratulations on obtaining the God-level Dao Art, 9 secrets. 9 secrets? Xingchen was immediately stunned for a moment, and then became ecstatic. The secret method of covering the sky, the 9 secrets. Even if you learn one of the 9 secrets, it is enough to dominate the world and coerce your peers. And what Xingchen has obtained now is directly the complete book of the 9 secrets. If you learn all the 9 secrets, then let alone the world of fire shadows, even if there are 9 heavens and 10 earths, all the heavens and all the worlds can be shocked. Xingchen never expected that he had just broken through an upper ninja, and he actually obtained the 9 secrets inheritance from the system, which was simply a little strange. Because compared to the 9 secrets, the Hokage world seems too low level. After calming down, Xingchen thought for a long time and finally made a decision. Retreat now. He wanted to start studying the 9 secrets immediately. As long as he can comprehend one of them, he can run amok in the Hokage world. At that time, what kind of Tuanzong will be just scum in his eyes? In the battlefield of the Land of Rain, war is in full swing, spreading in every inch of land, displacing countless people and countless families and destroying their families. Recently, a shocking story has spread across the battlefield. In the vicinity of Yunnan village, Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya encountered 3 generations of Kazekage and Hanzo of the mountain pepperfish, and the two sides fought a big battle, but returned with a crushing defeat, and Jiraiya was even seriously injured and dying at one point. This battle can be described as having a huge impact. The 3 of Orochimaru are the mainstay of Konoha, and they have joined forces a few days ago to be invincible in the battlefield and invincible. But this time it was such a fiasco, which made the Konoha army shake. The Sand Ninja forces took advantage of the victory to pursue, and Konoha was defeated, and the situation was very unoptimistic. Finally, under pressure, the 3rd generation of Hokage had to fight in person, and Konoha, in order to support the front line, even many students who had just graduated from the ninja school were summoned and went to the battlefield. Among them, there are Senju Rope Tree, Hinata Hayashi, Uchiha Fugaku, and others.